And 3, 2, 1, and hey, it's time. So I guess let me take this thing off here and we'll get things underway. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you spending time, taking your valuable time to spend with us. If you're watching this as a recording, we ask that you would do us a solid favor. Give us a like, share, follow, leave a comment. Anything that you agree with, disagree, any questions, we do monitor that on YouTube and or anywhere along this. We are going to record this. We'll send this recording out to you. You'll get this tomorrow along with the contact for our very guest, who I'm going to introduce here in just a second. I know you're all wondering where Trevor is because he's kind of always the star of the show, but Trevor is out sick today. So he said to tell you, thank you so much for being here. He hated to miss our 150th episode of free webinar series. So it's really fun to be here to hit that clock in time. It's hard to believe, quite frankly, we've done 150 of these. So without further ado, chat is down there. If you got any questions, it's open. Please use that. Stop us anytime. Send the questions anytime you have it. We've got a really special treat today. Last week and this week, we've been talking about how to take care of yourself, how to be good to yourself, how to take care of yourself. And thank you, Paula. I'll let him know that. And but just taking care of yourself, and when you do that, you get to be a better fundraiser. I mean, we're all in the fundraising business, and what that is, and you can be more productive, more and be better all the way around. So we kind of last week we really talked things about more like, physical, kind of getting your mind right and being around the people who you're doing that, just as a recap. And today we're going to talk about time management. One of the biggest issues that we all deal with is how in the world do we balance the time and get it all done? And I talked about it. We've talked about it in the past, making sure we get our priorities right, getting the big things done, the things that move the needle. But now we're going to really talk in this. So I'm really excited to have Chris McIntyre. So Chris McIntyre has been a friend of mine. We've known each other for 15 years, I think.
That's
and,
right.
And, we've really just got our friendship has grown over time, and where we were just acquaintances. And now I consider Chris to be a very good friend of mine and somebody who I can go to. Chris had a company. I'll get the name wrong, so I'm not going to say it, but he ran a very large organization, 175 people. He had a very successful exit out of that business. And then he kind of just became a hippie for a while because he let his hair grow really long. And I've got to tease him a little bit about that. No, but, and then he decided for the next phase of his life, what he wanted to do, and what he decided to do was go into coaching. And so he founded the seventh gear coaching. He wrote a book called The 7 Gears of Business on the bestsellers, New York bestsellers list, Amazon best list. Right there it is. It's a great book about understanding, and there's a lot of it that translates over to the nonprofit world. He does understand the nonprofit world because he spent 10 years on the board of a nonprofit. He and his wife are very philanthropic, and he's on the Forbes Coaching Council. We're a client. So HGA is a client of Chris. We asked him to come in this year to help us with our growing, because we've had such a successful monumental growth that it was more, and I needed the help. And so what we're talking about today is really what you guys deal with on a daily basis. We all do. And that's how do we manage our time better? That's how we can reduce. I'm going to give you a quick example. So we have a team member here who was really in a state where she was just frazzled all over the place. And we ran a lot of the things we're going to talk about today with her, and it was life-changing for her. Because our business, we're very spread out. We've got people in, I think, 8 states. So we're literally from South Carolina to California. We have employees all across and team members all across in the between. And so there becomes, when you're by yourself, and I know a lot of you do that, a lot of you are very small staffs. I think the average is 2.5 employees, which is amazing. And so Chris has a lot of experience that, going from 175 employees to 1. I had 75 employees in my last company before this, and then it was just me before Trevor and I created HGA Group and HGA Fundraising. So a lot of this stuff is going to feel that way, and so I'm going around the deal. So Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And just kind of echo some of the comments that Jason made, and support them. The nonprofit space is very important to me. It's close to my heart. Matter of fact, Tuesday I spent the day at my nonprofit of choice. There's a small Christian summer camp up in. It's about a 2-hour drive. They just acquired some new land, and I wanted to walk it and see it and spend some time with the executive director. We've formed a really good friendship over the last 15 years, and I work with Ron, and it's funny. I was asking him questions about, hey, how's the operation going? How about this? How are you, load balancing your time and your priorities? And I said, old board habits, die hard, and I love seeing that place succeed. And I spent 10 years there. It's just to go into the narrative a little bit, it was a place I went to as a kid, as a camper, and it was important to me. And then I worked there as a teenager, and then as an adult with kids, it was really full circle on Tuesday. My daughter's 23. She's graduated as a nurse. She's working in a hospital. She had the day off. We went out there, and we were talking about the day I brought her out there for her first run at camp when she was like in second grade. And it's just so wonderful to see the success of this ministry because they recognized one key thing, which was, hey, nonprofit is a tax designation. It's not a business strategy. And then having those conversations of going, hey, how can we really work on the engine in your nonprofit business to make sure that it can be a successful vehicle for your ministry, for your passion, for the next 50 years. And it's the work that you do is so important. And I'm just I'm excited to be here. And Jason did a great job of sort of explaining, hey, my background and experience. And I spent a lot of time in business, in business founding, business growth, business scaling. And that only becomes possible when we begin to look at the one non-renewable resource that we have, which is our time. And we only have so much time, and our strategies of how we use it for the business, for the ministry, for our day, for our life becomes really, really important because we all have objectives that we'd like to accomplish, and we all have the same sort of limited resource to execute that with. For example, just to kind of make things more finite, any given week, Jason and I, and I'm pretty sure everybody on the call right now, has the same amount of time in our week. We have 168 hours any given week. And if you assume that you sleep 8 of those hours, I wish I did, I don't quite, but point being, let's just say that you do, we have 112 hours to spend. And we've got to divvy that up between how to take care of ourselves and then how to execute our task, our responsibilities, our job, our career, our passions, and do that with a sense of balance as well. And hopefully I'm not talking out of school, but this was a conversation I was having with my wonderful daughter on Tuesday of going, sweetheart, yeah, you can't do it all. It's about prioritizing not just what's urgent, but what's important. And there's a lot of personal things that are actually quite important. And I want to talk to you a little bit about my journey of discovery with time management, because time management is not a natural skill of mine. It is not a natural talent of mine at all. I spent some time doing some homework and research on this particular subject as part of the research I did for my book, because we all have our strengths and we have our weaknesses. And one of my weaknesses would be the whole scheduling and time management, because I would prefer that I not have to sleep. I can work on whatever priorities I want, and whatever is the most exciting, innovative, new, shiny thing, that's what I'd like to spend my time on. But that's not really sustainable in terms of managing a successful nonprofit or office or enterprise, really of any size. So I want to break this down into a few items that you can actually take away and say, hey, I think I can actually do this. And then we can respond to some questions and answers. I will tell you, I spent time talking with 3 people when I did this research on how to manage, our time productively. And obviously there's a ton of people on the internet and on the YouTubes. And some of that stuff is actually quite good. But for me, I like talking to real life people. Like, for example, my wife is incredibly organized, and she was one of the 3 people. But I will tell you this, I was not able to get any useful information that I could share to other people or even implement in my life, because she's one of these people, and I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I can just tell it right now. But she is what I call an unconscious competent, which means she's highly competent. She is so organized, she gets so many things done, but it's more of a talent than a skill, which means it doesn't occur to her to do it any differently, which is really interesting when you know those people. And I think I always feel like I suffer in comparison, but it doesn't give me any information that I can use to generalize and share with other people. But let me tell you about Christian Sangri. Christian Sangri is a friend of mine. He's a business owner, and he's what I would call a solopreneur. He's a photographer. So if you think about this, a photographer has to really manage his or her schedule quite well. And so I went to his office. I set an appointment. I said, I want to see how your schedule ticks and how things work. And he began to kind of tell me, kind of like I'm telling you, but I said, I want to see it. And so I walked around behind his desk with him, and he was showing me, his weekly schedule and how everything works on an appointment with him. All of his tasks, all of his phone calls, all of his client sessions. And I looked at his schedule, and if you can imagine, a calendar view that's completely filled up with all the different colors. And I kind of had an emotional, almost visceral response to it. I felt my chest kind of closing in on me, and I was like, oh my gosh. I said, how do you feel like you can, have any freedom in your week? How do you feel? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, if you've ever gone to a movie at like at a mall, and you go to a nighttime movie, and when you come out, all the stores are closed, and there's that sort of stainless steel lattice work gate that comes down in front of all the stores. Well, that's what his schedule looked like to me. And I was like, I feel confined when I look at this. But I asked him a question. I said, what's your emotional response when you look at your schedule? And he said, peace. I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to explain that to me. What in the world? I feel like that I wouldn't be able to have any wiggle room. And he goes, no. He goes, at this point in life, I can't remember everything people tell me. I can't remember all of the appointments or people I'm supposed to meet with. And so I've got a couple of rules. If it's not written down, it won't happen. And 2, if it's not written down, you can't prove I'm supposed to do it. And I thought, fantastic. So he really leans on his schedule quite a bit. And as I was looking at his week, and I'll unpack this a little bit more, I saw these chunks. When I say a chunk, a 2-hour chunk on like 4 days out of the 5 that we were looking at. I said, that looks like a pretty big commitment. What's going on? Because it was color coded, and I would see it like from 1 to 3 o'clock each afternoon, or one was like 9 to 11 in the morning. I said, what is that thing? That looks big and heavy. He goes, oh, no, that's my creative time. I'm like, you're what? He goes, well, that's the time I schedule to work on projects and stuff that I feel like I need to do. And so when I put that on my schedule, I protect myself so that I have plenty of time to work on things. And I won't schedule client appointments. I won't schedule phone calls, and I won't spend time on emails during that time of the week. And I said, that's like 7 or 8 hours a week. He goes, yeah. He goes, if I want to go play Frisbee golf during that time, I could, because I've set that time aside. I was like, wow. So as I began to listen to Christian, I was like, okay, I'm starting to see why he sees peace in this organization, and this effort. So I would kind of break it down into about 3 different categories of stuff, of things that we want to do in a particular week. You've got tasks. These are to-do lists, to-do items. Then you've got appointments. And appointments are, with people at a specific time. And I find those pretty easy to manage. I talk to somebody, we, share email back and forth or text. That's why I'm here on time, is, we set an appointment. I'm supposed to be here. I came from an appointment. I don't miss those very often, but the tasks are honestly where I was suffering, getting all of the things I wanted to do that I know that are important done. And the third thing is projects. Tasks, appointments, and projects. Now, projects, I would just say, listen.
I want to just ask you something here real quick.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
one of the things I'm listening to you say this, I mean, a lot of things that, I'm the same way. I feel like, it took me a long time to get my schedule down. And one of the things I think we probably everybody listening, oh, one more thing, stay to the end and win. I forgot to say that. We're going to give something away here at the end of this thing. So we'll get you out of here in the hour, I promise, but stay to the end and win. So I need to say that. But, I think what you're saying about, doing, I know you're going to get to more of this, but it's really easy. And one thing I'd like you just to talk about, it's real easy to say, okay, yeah, I've got the appointments, I understand that, and I got my tasks. One of the things I think is really difficult for a lot of us, and I'd love to have a show of hands, anybody who struggles with this, to where all of a sudden a donor calls, hey, or I finally got this return call, and they said, I've got my project time is 1 to 3 in the afternoon. They said, well, I can do this at 1:30. And I just go, well, I really need to talk to this donor, and I do it. So talk about that, just if you don't mind, just for a little bit, because I believe that's something that we all struggle with, myself included, where, I really need to talk to Chris. He said, this is when I can do it. And so I'll negotiate with myself that, these things are, one thing's more important than the other. The problem is, once I do it once, I'll do it twice, 3 times. And the next thing you know, my projects aren't, my project time is gone, my task time is gone, and I'm just back into reaction mode. So could you talk about that for just a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the one thing that was your comment and question is very timely, because I said tasks, appointments, and projects, but I didn't say anything about emails. I didn't say anything about phone calls. Those are the big distractors. And some people are, well, that's my customer. That's not a distractor. I said, well, let's talk about that a little bit. If someone needs to talk with us, what is reasonable? Like, for example, if we want to see our doctor, do we just call him on the phone and say, hey, doc, I don't know how it works where you live, but it doesn't work that way where I live. I've got to schedule an appointment, and sometimes I'm lucky if that's in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You might say, well, that's a doctor. I say, okay, well, let's talk about other busy professionals. If I had plumbers coming out yesterday. I had a plumbing problem when I called them. They didn't drop what they were doing and come immediately to my house. They said, we can come out there on Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, that sounds awesome. And I was saying on the inside, I wish it was sooner, but I get it. I understand. I'm not their only client. I'm not their only customer. So where I'm headed towards this is to look at your day, your 112 hours from the time that you wake up to the time you go to bed, and a big chunk of that is going to be the time that you spend at work, and say, okay, if someone calls me, is it a reasonable expectation that I drop what I'm doing, whatever I'm working on, and speak to them right now? If somebody sends me or you an email, is the expectation that you have of them that they are going to respond right now, by gosh, or there's going to be a problem? Of course not. But sometimes we act as if that email or that phone call is the most important thing that could be happening right now. And I want to tell you 99% of the time, that is not true. And I'm going to be a little edgy, and I may not get invited back for this reason, but I'm going to say that's a category of procrastination, because there's active procrastination, which I'm a big, participant
Yeah,
in.
me too.
And active procrastination would be things like, spending time on social media, or games, or YouTube, or Instagram, or what they call it, doom scrolling. But there's passive procrastinators, and I want to talk more about that. I think that's where our time goes. It's phone calls, it's text, it's emails. One of the exercises, as a matter of fact, I just shared this with Jason in the last couple of weeks, is with my clients. A lot of times they go, Chris, I don't have enough bandwidth to get everything done that I want to in a day. I'm very busy. At the end of the day, I'm tired. I'm worn out. I have so many things I'm doing, but I'm not getting the time to work on the stuff that really I think is important, to my business or my project. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
And so I've got a little activity audit, and it's super simple. Jason could share it, or you can just look up.
We'll put it on the email for tomorrow, and
Okay,
just
very good.
so any of this stuff that you talk about, we'll just add it on for when
Yeah,
we send everything out tomorrow with the recording. Absolutely.
perfect. And it's one of those things. Kind of like if you're going to begin budgeting money, a lot of times the best exercise to do is, hey, keep track of where you're spending your money for the next month or two before we begin changing things. So at least you'll begin to identify where your financial resource is going. I know in successful, dieting, a lot of times what nutritionists will say, hey, here's a sheet, keep track of everything that you eat for the next week, and let's just see what your consumption is and see what we need to change. And the same thing is true for your time resource. Where is your time going now? And some of the results that I've gotten from my clients is pretty amazing. When it's a schedule. That's all it looks like. It's a day at a glance broken up into 15-minute increments. I said, listen, as you go through your day, just jot little notes. Stop every hour or two and write down the things that you spent your time on. And this one particular fellow was probably the busiest fellow I've ever met. And he was doing about 20 to 25 phone calls a day in addition to his other stuff, and somewhere between 80 to 100 texts a day. And I was like, there it is. He's like, what? I said, you're so accessible to anybody and everybody that reaches out to you. There's no way you can get anything done. He's like, well, I've got to talk to these people. I said, okay. I think what's true is these people need to be spoken to, but you may not need to talk to them right now when they reach out to you. What can we do to begin to change that? So I'm going to take a liberty here and like I said, maybe step on some toes, but to call those procrastinations, because we need to take control of our schedule more. It is very reasonable to respond to an email same day, next morning. It doesn't have to be right now. Matter of fact, some of the most successful time managers, when it comes to emails, they have a couple of times a day that they actually put on their schedule to respond to emails. And some people, and some of the most successful people, are very intentional about not responding to emails first thing in the morning, because there's no telling what kind of emails, what kind of tone, what kind of urgency, what kind of lack of good tone you might find in the email. So responding, let's say at 11 or 11:30 in the morning, and then again maybe at 3:30 or 4, and those are your two scheduled time that you
Hey,
respond to.
I want to just ask you something. I think what you just said is you're in the middle of stuff, you're feeling good, you're kind of jamming, doing whatever you do, and then all of a sudden you see that email and somebody goes, I'm furious right now because you didn't answer this and you blah blah this that and the other such and such so and so, and you get somebody who get one of those uncomfortable emails.
Yeah, we call those
And
heaters.
you read that
Yeah,
that just completely discombobulates everything that you've got going, and all of a sudden you go, oh golly. That's what you're talking about, right?
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And I'm also talking about the
Anybody
innocent.
else, has anybody else ever get those? Anybody? Put the little show of hands up there. You can raise your hand. Anybody else? Nobody? No. Oh, one. Okay, I got one.
There we
Yeah, there
go.
we go. We got a couple of people that
There
are
we
going to tell the truth, but so I guess the rest of y'all just live in fairy. I want to live in y'all's world. So,
go.
but thank you, Paula. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Great point. But even if the email content isn't, let's say, negative in tone, it's a time stealer, and it's so easy to sit there and start pounding out emails, and before you know it, 2 hours is gone, and you're just responding to stuff. And while that's helpful and maybe good, it would be better to go ahead and say, hey, listen, I respond to emails at 11 o'clock in the morning and again at 3:30, and free yourself up. Like right now, I saw Jason do this. We do this at the beginning of our meetings. We did it at the beginning of this meeting. Sometimes with new clients, I will say something like, hey, is it okay with you if I turn my phone off? I want to make sure I'm not distracted during our meeting. Now, I know I'm not going to get distracted, but what I'm communicating to them is I don't want them to be distracted. I want them to turn their phone off. So where I'm going with this is we have to protect our time. We have to protect our time resource during the day to get things done. So I'm going to say, you know, you can turn email into a task, meaning, hey, I do the task of email at 11 o'clock each morning. And just trust that if something is really burning down the house and super, super urgent, maybe they'll call you or they'll send a couple of emails or something like that. It's like right now, I've got clients, I've got family. If something was really super duper urgent, the fire truck would show up outside the house. Somebody would contact somebody else in the house and they would come get me. So unless it's an emergency, my focus is here. And when you begin to treat your work that way, you can get so much more done. And what begins to be kind of funny is on emails that you don't respond to for a few hours, it'll be amazing to you how many people find their own answers in that time. And you're like,
Wow.
wow. There's a saying. It's funny. I was talking with my sister. I asked her a question about something, and she goes, "Oh, let me Google that for you." And I was like, "Well, I wasn't trying to be that way," but she made a really good point of, "You could look this up. Why are you asking me?" I was like, "Oh, well," and honestly, I said, "Well, it was just easier for me to ask you this thing." And so I'm sitting here, maybe avoiding my work or not wanting to look it up, and I'm trying to find the easy way out. And so a lot of times, a lot of the emails that you're getting and texts that you're getting are just people that either aren't aware of your schedule, or sometimes they're not on a schedule. So
Mhm.
they're just throwing out little pings on the radar. And what we need to do is protect our schedule. And here's what we're going to do with our schedule. If we say, okay, well, if I'm not on email, what am I going to do? And I was watching one particular fellow. He said, treat your work times, your work chunks, like going to the movie. I was like, where's he going with this? Well, he said, typically people are successful in business, as far as productive in business, in like 2 hour chunks, 2.5 hour chunks. But that's about how long it takes to go to the movie. Because when we go to the movies, we go to the bathroom first, we get a snack. Maybe we stretch a little bit, we turn off our phones and we sit down and we focus on what's going on. I was like, wow. He goes, yeah, if you think about it, each day we've got 2 opportunities to do that, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. So if we could have 2 2 hour chunks that we set aside, that we turn off other distractions and we focus on what we have decided is important. Like, for example, I'm kind of known as a clipboard guy. In all of my client meetings, and really for my entire career, my business partner used to he used to tease me about it because I always put things on the clipboard. And I know there's digital things and electronic things, and there's a little app called TickTick that is great for managing tasks. I'll share that with you as well. And I'll share with you, hey, if you're going to do some stuff electronic, a few criteria that I've learned that are very helpful to me and I can recommend to others. But first thing is treat work like going to the movie. And when I say work, these are your important projects, stuff that you need to get done. And Oh gosh, you guys have all heard this. Have you heard Parkinson's law? The amount of time that you have, the amount of time that a task takes expands to fill all the available time. Now, what that means is if somebody gives me an assignment to do like a book report in school and it's due on Friday, well, if it ain't Thursday, I'm not working on it. So,
Mhm.
but the way that we're supposed to learn, and like for example, people I know, maybe my wife, she got her master's in history, and she loves this stuff. And so when she's got a project due on Friday, she is scheduling time on Monday afternoon for an hour or two, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. She's doing exactly like she's supposed to. So this is the kind of thing I'd say is schedule your work like you're going to the movie. Go to the bathroom beforehand. Tell yourself, hey, it's 9:30. I'm going to work until 11:30, and I'm not going to answer emails. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to focus on this task and this project. And you can schedule that on your weekly calendar, just like it's an appointment with somebody else, but this time it's an appointment with yourself and that work project. And
I want
once
to
it's on your schedule, it's real.
Yeah. I want to I'm going to, and this is not a disagreement. This is just an also piece of it because like we have an employee who works for us. I mentioned her when we first started. Her name's Katie as well. Chris's wife is Katie. So we'll talk about our Katie. And, she's got well, I think Faye's about 18 months old now, little girl. And so she needed to be able to have time in that. So what we did with her is we did our chunks in 30 minutes. And the whole point was because she's our redemption coordinator. So she's the one person, whenever a donor who's bought a trip, they're reaching out, they've got questions or anything like that. She's the person that coordinates that, gets them with a hospitality representative and gets their booking started. And she was just getting inundated with stuff constantly. I mean, it was just constant emails. Not only was it externally, but it was also internally. So she was getting stuff from from inside our team as well as externally from donors trying to reach out and get information. And so but she had these tasks that she has to do, and she does a lot. She's in charge of a pretty big piece of our business, coordinating all the bookings. It's a lot, and she was not getting it done, and she was just getting so frustrated. But she's got time with her daughter, she's got different things going on, and we did hers in 30-minute chunks because it was exactly what Chris said about the call. There's not a phone call or a text message, and if you look at the average, she would be able to respond to it in 30 minutes, and she would just be able to go through and look, is there something there's something that I critical that somebody needs from somebody,
Mhm.
and then she could do that, and she specific amount of time to do it. It wasn't to respond to everything. It was just if there was something that was real specific, and then it was 30 and 30. So she was basically 30 minutes of focus that she would get stuff done, and then she would have 30 minutes of what we call the flex, where she could, she needed to go do something with her kid. She's in if she's doing some different things in their time, the way she works her time, it's really really interesting now. But um, to do those certain things, because she would turn all distractions off. She wouldn't. You
Mhm.
call if the world's on fire, she wouldn't know until 29 minutes after she started, because that's just how focused she is on it. And literally, the amount when she started doing that till now, the amount of processing ability that she's had has been able to double. And she you know called me in tears about 2 months ago and just said, and I said, what's going on? Because she had called me in tears before when we started this program, because she was so upset and frustrated because she just couldn't get everything done. And she said, it's just been a game changer for me. She said, I went from being like, I just was always behind the eight ball, just constantly reacting and never getting caught up. And now she said, I know what's going to happen. There is no confusion for her. I know what's going to happen. And I think that's where you're going with this time chunk
That's
and
a
this
key
thing
word.
is
Yeah.
pre-action.
Yeah. If you're reacting throughout the day, you're probably not getting your priorities done. And when I say your priorities, it's not a selfish thing. It's about things that that you've looked at on your list of stuff that you know that needs to get done. It's important stuff. Typically when we go to work, we're not working on our own priorities. We're working on the work or job or ministry priorities.
Mhm.
So
Well,
the
let me
thing
ask
that,
you that I want to just, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to ask this, and maybe this is where you're going. But yesterday, because everybody, I told you, we're a client of Chris's, and he and I met yesterday, and there was something that you said about, you have your tasks all done, and if you're in reaction mode and those tasks aren't done at the end of the day, and then they go over the next day. And so
yeah,
we're really, that's a pretty good indicator of where we're not getting our stuff done or we're in reaction mode versus
yeah.
proactive mode.
Yeah, whenever I don't have my schedule in place, what happens is I can spend the entire day and be very busy and not very productive at all. Most of our jobs are that kind of a thing where we can kind of show up, grab some coffee, and then sit down in the cockpit. And boy, I tell you what, it's a rocket sled ride for the rest of the day. But when we look at it, going, oh my gosh, there was 3 or 4 things I really didn't get done that I needed to. And if we're honest, we say, where'd that time go? Well, I got stuck on that call. I took more time on that email than I thought it would take. Then I had to run this errand that I wasn't planning on, and then that's where the time went. So there's reactive and proactive. And one little tip here is, like, for example, if somebody wanted to schedule an appointment with me, one of the things that I've got the ability to do, and you all do too, it's free. It's Calendly, Calendly. It's an application. It works on your phone, it works on the internet, and it'll interface with your Google Calendar or your iCal. I use an Apple Calendar, so I like that.
Mhm.
But basically, I can go through and say, hey, listen, I'll set aside 10 hours during the week for appointments that if people want to talk to me and it's important, they can schedule it, and they can say they can have a 15-minute, they can have a 30-minute call with me, and they get to pick it. And I have set aside time in my week that anybody that I send the link to can schedule time with me. And that turns some of these distractions into appointments that you can actually proactively address with people, and you can plan around. But to Jason's point of saying, hey, we had one of our ladies work on a 30-minute increment in turning everything off, all distractions off. And I was saying, hey, you can go 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Well, you need to find out what works for you. But the thing that both of those have in common is they're intentional. So if you're intentional with scheduling your time of saying, hey, I'm going to turn everything off and I'm going to focus for 30 minutes or an hour. Or when
Mhm.
you're looking at your task, just put out to the right of it. How long do you think it'll take you? And then, schedule an appointment with yourself for that task or that project. And if you need to kind of come up for air every 30 minutes to an hour to check to see if anything else is going on, that's fine. But Jason is exactly right. An email can wait 30 minutes or an hour. A phone call can wait 30 minutes to an hour.
Text
Everything's
message.
going to be fine.
Yeah,
Now,
our accessibility has gotten such a where we, in my world, I'm accessible by phone call, text, and email. Well, if I don't turn that phone off and set it over here, I would have been, I would be doing this while we're in this webinar right now. If
right.
I don't set it over there, but if I know it pops, well, it's still a distraction because I'm thinking about, well, wonder what she wanted. What did that person want? What is my, you
Yeah.
know, and the people that know me, in my company, everybody has, not everybody, but pretty much the people that need to have access to my calendar so they can see if I've got something going on. So they know. One of the things that I've found is real interesting is people are scared to, when they're worried about sharing. "Oh, I don't want to share my calendar with people. I don't want to know what I'm doing." I get it. I mean, it's a little bit of a privacy thing. It's not something that comes naturally for me. But once I got past that, what I found was people respected my time enormously. We use the Calendly for a lot of stuff, like with our team when they're booking their appointments, and it makes it so much easier because instead of going back and forth with 5 emails trying to come up with a time to meet,
Right.
they see everything right there. This is what's available. And that may seem like a little bit impersonal, but when you think about the time loss of going back and forth, Jackie sent me, had a question, said, "Hey, can I get with you on this?" I said, "Here are the two things I had." I mean, we got it done. And I said, "There are the blocks I have in the next 48 hours." And she got right back to me and we got it booked. I don't personally use a calendar link. We use it in our business a lot. But my point is, you can get caught back and forth where you're going back and forth on stuff. It's real easy. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden you think about, well, if I spend 5 minutes trying to schedule every appointment and I've got 5 appointments, that's 25 minutes that I've lost. Well, you look at your available time, how valuable your time out of your 112 hours, that's pretty expensive. Just setting an appointment. Well, if I become more efficient, that would give me time for another appointment, and I think that we all get, especially in the nonprofit world, well, this is an important donor. I've got to take it. They're all important. They all are. And what I found is uh, the people that are the most successful, whether it be in business, whether they be professionals, whether they be nonprofit executives, fundraisers, directors, developments, anywhere, volunteers, they protect their time because as soon as you declare that your time is valuable, everybody else will see that it's valuable. But if you don't value it, no one else will. And I think that's a really hard turn for a lot of us to make. I've had difficult with that, and I really struggled with it. Early on in my career, that I thought I had to be available to everybody. Well, then nobody valued my time because I didn't value my time. So I was getting ran over all the time by everybody, by employees, by clients, by partners, anybody. Just it was just vendors. It was just a constant chaos. And so,
Yeah.
if you have any of that reluctance, any of it, first of all, I want to tell you, you're in good company. I have the same thing. It's right there. I have the exact same stuff about it. But if I didn't keep my calendar, it would be a disaster. And my
Yeah.
calendar's, like I know this afternoon, I don't block my time for this afternoon, but I just know I'm not going to put anything in it. I've got some things I have to do, some personal stuff that I need to deal with, some business stuff. And I was thinking about that. I thought I need to just block that out in my calendar because that's something I don't do, and just block it out and put it down so that way my team knows that I'm going to be out. Um,
Yeah. I
and
constantly tell myself, like when I'm making plans with somebody, that I'll remember this. And I
mhm.
cannot tell you how many times I'm wrong about that.
I
And
never
I've
can
just gotten to the point, if it's not written down, I will forget it. I will not do it. And I gotta make sure it's there. And one last little note about that Calendly thing. That's when people that feel like they need to talk to you. It only shows, it doesn't show what you're doing, doesn't show your schedule. It only shows available times where they can select and schedule a meeting. And then it does it, it notifies you, it puts it on your calendar. It
Right.
also reminds them. It's really easy to set up. And I would just encourage you that if you're having a whole lot of people kind of snipe on your schedule, you can protect your time. And like I even saw some recommendations about, hey, listen, whenever you're on a 30-minute or 2 hour, chunk of time that you're working on a work project, you know, turn off your phone ringer. Uh, no email. I mean, you can close Outlook or you can close your email browser. You don't have to be seeing that for 30 minutes or an hour. You can always come back to it, right? Even some people said, hey, listen to some music, put on some, headphones and focus on, if you had, two times, even for 1 hour a day, so it's 2 hours total in a day, where you could work on projects that you knew were important. How would you feel at the end of that day, compared to how do you feel on a normal day? You'd probably feel pretty good and go, I like how this is working. So that's one thing, chunk your time. Second item would be batch your tasks, meaning group small tasks together. Um, pick one project. Like, for example, if you're working on, for a particular client, you can schedule a time. Hey, I need to work with maybe this event, or maybe I need to talk with this employee. Go ahead and line up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you need to get from that person or work on that project at a time. So batch those tasks. And that would also be like set aside time to batching emails where, hey, at 11 o'clock in the morning or 11:30, that's when I'm going to respond to it. And you're saying to yourself, I'm going to respond to all of my emails at that time and ignore them up to that point. But that gives you that focus, that gives you that intentionality in your day. And then this third concept is think before you work. think before you work. Ask yourself questions like, is this something that I need to be doing? Could this be delegated to someone else? Is there an app for that? Is there a different, easier, better way that I could go about doing this? And we're kind of talking about repetitive tasks. If it's a one-off thing, go ahead and knock it out, get it done. But if you see something popping up on a consistent basis, ask the question, hey, is there a better way, to do this? Or am I really the best person to be doing this? And so often from sort of a spirit of service mindedness, we're going, okay, I want to do that for you because you asked me. But there's times when sometimes the power of just saying, I don't think I'm the best person to do that. I'd be happy to help you with that. And I had a client call me, gosh, it was Tuesday. It was when I was out of town. And they needed help with their, with basically porting over one of their phone numbers. And I said, okay, well, I don't know that I'm the best guy to help you with that, but I could talk to you at 11 o'clock tomorrow for that. And so at 11 o'clock tomorrow, I did. And, it was one of those things where I was not, I happen to know a lot about telecom stuff, but it was an odd request. And so ultimately what happened is when I spoke with this young lady at this client's office, I said, I tell you what, I know who can help you with this, and I'm going to introduce you to them. And I sent a text to both of them, and they got it connected and they got it resolved. And I wasn't the one who actually did the task. Now, there is a big part of me that wants to be the guy that solves everything. I love putting on my fireman's hat and running over to the fire and putting it out. But I knew a couple of things, that she would get help. She would get a solution better if I wasn't involved in it. And I also know that next time she needs something in this arena, she's going to call that person instead of me. So think before you work, look before you leap kind of thinking. Can this be delegated to someone else? Is there some tech that's available to help with this? Like, for example, Calendly would be an example of some tech where, hey, somebody wants to talk to you. Hey, that's great. I'm kind of tied up today. I'm going to send you a link. Would you pick a time for us to talk either tomorrow or the next day? And I'll be ready then. That's a super reasonable response when somebody wants to talk with you. Just sometimes, when we reach out to people, we're not offended when they can't talk to us until tomorrow. But sometimes we act like if we don't respond to people immediately, somehow we're letting them down. And that's not true. So if you can lean on a little bit of technology, these things are super easy to use, super easy to figure out. I mentioned another application called TickTick. When it comes to technology, I have a few criteria. I'm going to show you my phone. I don't know how well it shows up, but
Yeah, you can see it.
This particular app right here, I think I'm pointing to it, is called TickTick. And if I open it up, it's got all of my to-dos on it.
Yeah, you can't see it very good there. But
okay. It gave me it's wanting me to sign up for some additional services. But point being is you can just kind of customize it. And I like it because it's great for keeping track of tasks. I like my clipboard, but I don't take my clipboard everywhere with me. But when it comes to software, one of the things I would say is make sure it works on your phone and your web browser and a tablet if you use it. That's one of the things I like about TickTick is it's free. It works on my phone. It works on the internet. And it works on my tablet. And whenever I hit my browser, on the default, it opens up and it shows me my calendar. That's one of the tabs. It shows TickTick for my tasks. It shows me Zoom for my meetings. And so that's the way that my website opens up on all of my devices. So I don't have to spend time hunting around and looking for stuff. And whenever I schedule something in my phone, it also automatically appears on my web interface. So no matter where I am, I don't have to spend time writing it down here and there and somewhere else. So if you're going to use technology, just make sure it's easily accessible for you on the devices that you normally use.
Cool.
So use tech, but be smart about it, be thoughtful about it. Those are things that were important criteria for me. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Batch your tasks, meaning do a lot of little things at the same time. Third, chunk your work, treat it like going to the movies, whether it's sitting down for 30 minutes, focusing on something, or for a couple of hours. And this all comes down to being intentional, being proactive with your time, because your commitment really should be to deliver the highest level of service to your ministry, to your company, to your clients. It's not necessarily the fastest for everybody that calls when they call, but it's the best, most manageable, and most sustainable, for your emotional health, for your emotional balance, for your sense of gratification, satisfaction, and completion, because we need that, from our work, from our workplace. And if you're working at a nonprofit or a company, there's some part of you that really believes that that's valuable. And this is a way to actually deliver high value contribution on a consistent basis that you can feel good about it, and you don't feel quite so pulled left and right and center back and forth by email, by phone calls, by text. So I'm with Jason yesterday, and he used an interesting visual. He said, "Hey, I feel like I'm the guy driving the golf ball pickup on the driving range, and I've got 4 or 5 professional golfers just pinging the heck out of my cart." And I had that visual in my mind where you're just sitting there all day long trying to get your work done. All of a sudden, ping, 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 ping. And I thought that's a pretty good visual for most of us.
Well, I think that's something that happens to all of us, even at the best, timing and all. If you get all the best stuff, you're still going to have days like this. But I can tell you, once you take charge of this, and once you do, your whole world is going to change. One, your level of pressure and anxiety is going to change because you know what's coming. You know what's going to do. You know when you're going to deal with stuff. You stop procrastinating stuff, whether it's an active or I think that's what you used.
Yeah, active or passive.
Active or passive. And you're going to get a lot more stuff done, and you're going to feel a lot better at the day because you know that you did get something accomplished. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of times, some days are just going to be rough. I mean, gosh, we all have them. Yesterday was one for me. I just felt like, but I kept my appointments. I kept everything. I stayed on my schedule. And that way, with the end of the day, I got done. I felt good because I got it all done. Because where 10 years ago, maybe I would have just been, I would have been a basket case because I was just constantly reacting, and I would have canceled appointments and said this, that, and the other, and I didn't. And so these are some really good things because when this stuff starts coming, you know how to react to it. You've got a system in place. 2 things that I just really little notes. And I know Chris does this as well out of courtesy. I did this, I usually do this on every meeting, or somebody does it for me. I have a hard stop. We have a hard stop on this at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. That means we're not going to go over. I'm telling the person, hey, I've got a hard stop at, whatever, to let them know that's coming. And I do that at the very beginning. If I have a call with Chris and I have, hey man, I wanted to talk to you, but I got a hard stop in 10. Okay. And so that way we know that we've got 10 minutes to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about and get it done. So that's just something I was going to do. Paula brought up a really good point. She said, if you have a chance to volunteer for a foundation that has a great time management, or in other words, if you've got, maybe there's another organization, somebody and they seem to have it all together and got their time down and going, and you want to see it, go see what they do. There's nothing better than going and seeing somebody who's good at it. And I have yet to find somebody who goes, nah, I really don't, I'm not going to do that. Of course because they want to share that. And so it's a really good opportunity to go do that. And so look at other people who are doing it well, find out what they do, find out what, you're going to get little tips like the tick tick. Never heard of tick tick till today. Those are things, we're actually doing the time management, the documenting time in 15-minute increments. Our entire company's doing it. Everyone's doing it, including myself, because where are the time leaks? Because if we can if everybody can pick up an extra 15, 20, 30 minutes of time every week, that's a huge deal across our organization. That's a lot of productive time that we can go back into doing things and being better at what we're doing. Plus, it takes stress and pressure off of our team. So I think all these things are such good. Chris, I can't thank you enough for being here. We got to give something away. And so I'm going to jump right to it, but I really appreciate it. Any last questions you have, put it up there. When we send out the email with this tomorrow, we'll try to find a link to TickTick. We'll also get the time management sheet, just the time audit sheet on there, but also you'll get Chris's email. So if you have anything for him, a question, I know he'd be happy to do that. And I got permission before that to make sure we could do that. I wouldn't have asked anyway. I was probably just going to put it on there, but we'll get that going. So I'm going to do my drawing. I've already got the person drawn. It's what I was doing before we were finished. Paula Langman, you're our winner today. You're the big winner. So you get to reach up, touch the screen, and spin to see what you win. And there it goes. All right. Paula, congratulations. You won 200 HGA bucks. You get to use this for any item for your next fundraiser. And gosh, we really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Paula runs the Ashley Langdon Foundation and does great work for what she's doing down there in Houston. And so thank you so much for being here. Chris, thanks again, brother. I really appreciate it. We appreciate your time. And thank you, Beverly. Thank you for telling us that.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Glad to serve, and hope this is helpful and of use to you guys. Just a little bit better, next week than this week. That's all we need.
That's right. Good stuff. All right, everybody. Hey, next week we'll be back here at the same time, same place. So I hope to see you again here on webinar. And once again, if you saw this on a recording, please leave us a comment. Share this with somebody else. When you get this email tomorrow, send it out to a nonprofit that would like to hear it and help them to do better as well. Until then, see you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks, Chris.